Hi there, my name is Amber and I work in the Employee Wellbeing Service in Cwmtaf Morgannwg University Health Board, and this is a recording of our sleep workshop. The first half of the video, we will be looking at understanding sleep and why it's important. And in the second half of the video, we will then be looking at how we can improve our sleep. Before we get started, I would just like to make you aware there will be different reflection points during the video where you might want to make some notes and reflect on different questions that I might ask. So you might find it helpful to grab pen and paper just so you can make some notes. And you can even pause the video if you feel you need longer to think. So please feel free to pause the video now if you would like to grab a pen and paper. If anyone watching is a shift worker rather than working a 9 to 5, you might find some of the ideas that we discussed on how to improve sleep difficult, as you might not know what shift you have coming up. So there will be an extra handout linked to the description of this video, which might be helpful for shift workers to read alongside watching the video. So please make sure if you are a shift worker that you keep an eye out for the extra handout. To start, let's look at understanding sleep. The National Sleep Foundation recommend that adults aged 26 to 64 years should receive 7 to 9 hours of sleep, but no less than 6 hours or more than 10 hours. Now, this will change if we are younger or older than this, but if we are between the ages of 26 to 64, we want to be aiming for 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. A lot of people tend to think of the magic 8 and say things such as, I need my 8 hours of sleep. And that's usually because 8 is in the middle of 7 and 9. If you're someone who is particularly active in the day, you're probably going to need more nearer the 9-hour mark. And if you are not as active, more towards the 7-hour mark. What we don't want is less than 6 hours or more than 10 hours. Now that often surprises people when I say we should not have more than 10 hours. And that's usually because we think the more sleep we get, the better that is for us. But actually, it reaches the point where more than 10 hours is actually far too much for us. And this can lead us to feel exactly the same as though we hadn't had enough sleep. So you might wake up groggy, lethargic. So actually, too much sleep can be just as detrimental for us as not having enough sleep. And the reason we say no less than 6 is because while you can survive on 6 hours of sleep, it can have many short-term and long-term detrimental effects on your body. For example, you're likely to be sleep deprived, meaning it can be difficult for us to go to bed in the morning. You might feel drowsy or sluggish. You might fall asleep while watching TV in the afternoons. You might even fall asleep in the middle of a meeting. It can also increase the risk of health issues such as hypertension, obesity, and diabetes. So we do want to be aiming for that 7 to 9 hour mark. It's worth noting here that when I say 7 to 9 hours of sleep, this means actual sleep and not just time lying in bed. Have you ever wondered why we use the phrase sleep on it when we're struggling to make a decision or need to solve a problem? There is some research that has been done that shows that we are 3 times more likely to solve a problem after a night of good quality sleep than we are before a period of sleep. So the reason we mention this is because when we sleep, it's not just about our body that is rested and preparing ourselves. There's a lot going on in our brain too. That's how problem solving is easier after sleep, because our brain is getting a chance to rest, sort through everything it needs to ahead of the next day. Sleep is not just important for the body, but it's also important for our mind as well. So why is sleep important? I'm now going to run through some research that has been done to show different effects sleep can have on both our body and our mind. Firstly, sleep improves concentration and productivity. Medical interns in the USA who worked shifts over a 24-hour period made 36% more serious medical errors than interns on a schedule that allowed more sleep. Sleep improves weight loss and weight management. A study following 60,000 non-obese nurses for 16 years found the nurses who slept 5 or fewer hours per night were 15% more likely to be obese than those who slept at least 7 hours a night. Sleep reduces the risk of heart disease and stroke. A review of 15 studies found that people who don't get enough sleep are at far greater risk of heart disease or stroke than those who sleep for 7 to 8 hours per night. Sleep decreases the risk of type 2 diabetes. A study in young healthy men restricting sleep to 4 hours per night for 6 nights in a row caused symptoms of pre-diabetes. These symptoms did resolve after 1 week of increased sleep. I'd just like to note here, a lot of this research can feel very overwhelming, and a lot of us might even think, oh my goodness, I'm struggling with sleep. Does that mean I'm now going to experience all of these things? This research isn't here to scare anybody, but it is here to show you how important sleep is for our mind and our body. And as this last study shows, we can actually reverse a lot of the negative effects of not sleeping well by increasing our sleep. And hopefully after today's session, you'll have some tools to help you with that. Sleep is also linked to improved mental health, and it's estimated that 90% of people with depression complain about sleep quality. Sleep improves our immune function, so a large 2-week study monitored the development of the common cold after giving people nasal drops with the cold virus. They found that those who slept less than 7 hours were almost 3 times more likely to develop a cold than those who slept 8 hours or more. And finally, sleep improves emotional resilience and social interactions. One study found that people who hadn't slept had a reduced ability to recognize expression of anger and happiness. So how does this all work? When we sleep, we go through what we call sleep cycles. Sleep cycle is a physiological process that occurs during sleep. It allows the brain and body to perform our housekeeping functions, such as repairing or growing tissues, removing toxins, and processing memories. In a typical night, a person will go through these 4 stages of sleep for roughly 4 to 6 cycles. Now, not all sleep cycles are the same length, but on average, they last around 90 minutes each. There are 2 types of sleep that we enter into. The first is called non-REM sleep. This is a deep and restful sleep that clears out old memories, while REM sleep is when we dream and our eyes move rapidly. Let's look at these different stages of the sleep cycle. Stage 1. Stage 1 begins when a person shifts from wakefulness to sleep. It's a period of light non-REM sleep that slows down a person's heart rate, breathing, eye movement, and brain waves. The muscles also relax, although they may twitch occasionally. And this stage is quite short and lasts for around 1 to 5 minutes. Stage 2. This is a period of deeper non-REM sleep, where the muscles relax further, eye movement stop, and body temperature drops. During the first sleep cycle of the night, this stage lasts around 25 minutes and lengthens with each new sleep cycle. Overall, this stage accounts for more than 50% of sleep in adults. Stage 3. Stage 3 is a non-REM sleep again, and it's the deepest stage of sleep and the hardest to wake up from. During this stage, heart rate, breathing, and brain waves become regular. A person will experience the most deep sleep during the first half of the night. With each sleep cycle, the amount of deep sleep decreases. This is the stage people typically find most difficult to wake up from, and if a person does wake up during the deep sleep, they may feel mentally foggy for around 30 to 60 minutes. The overall percentage of deep sleep tends to decrease with age. And finally, stage 4. This is the last stage of sleep in the REM sleep. The term REM refers to a person's eye movement. During this stage, the eyes move quickly and rapidly from side to side. Therefore, REM stands for rapid eye movement. During REM sleep, breathing quickens and becomes more erratic, and the vital signs such as blood pressure and heart rate become less regular. REM sleep is the sleep stage more associated with dreaming, and although dreaming can occur in any other stages, during this time, most people experience muscle atona or temporary muscle paralysis, which occurs naturally during REM sleep, and this will then prevent the person from acting out their dreams. REM sleep lasts for approximately 10 minutes during the first sleep cycle, increasing in length as the night progresses. In the final cycle of sleep, REM can last up to 1 hour. In order to improve our sleep, we need to understand it and monitor it. One way to do that is to think about our quality and quantity of sleep. If we're first thinking about quantity, we want to check how long we're asleep for, not just how long you're in bed. And if we're thinking about quality, you need to start getting enough deep sleep every night to replenish our body. So we're going to have a look now at some ideas we can engage with to ensure we can get a good night's sleep. Now, some of these ideas that I'm going to run through now might seem obvious to some people or even common sense, but it's thinking about these obvious and simple things we tend to forget and we tend to stop doing. So it's worth having a little reminder of what these things are for us. The first thing we're going to have a look at is comfort. Are you comfortable when you go to bed? Firstly, it's important to think about our mattress. Do we have a good mattress to support our body? Are we comfortable? When we sleep, our bodies relax and release all tension that has built up during the day. This means that our muscles are more relaxed and we're not as tense when we wake up in the morning. So we need a good quality mattress to suit us to be able to do this and release that tension. So if we're not comfortable, that's going to wake us up, meaning we have poor quality sleep. It might also be worth thinking about other things that can bring us comfort in bed. For example, maybe a mattress topper. Do we need more or less pillows? Do you need fluffier pillows maybe because perhaps you're worn out now and maybe they're a bit old? These little changes can make a huge difference to our sleep. It's also worth noting here that mattresses should only last 8 years. You can flip them after 8 years, but we'd recommend probably a new mattress after 8 years. So really think about your comfort in bed and what that feels like for you currently. Watch what you drink. Now let's think about what we drink. In this section, I'm going to cover caffeine, alcohol, and drinks in general. Let's start with caffeine. Now, the vast majority of adults probably consume caffeine on a daily basis, and we do this to feel more awake, and we probably rely on caffeine to energize us, to enhance our mood, meaning we'll be able to work better. However, because caffeine consumption can make us fall asleep a lot later in the day and the night, resulting in less hours sleeping overall, this can actually cause your sleep to be less satisfying. This is because it reduces the amount of deep sleep that you have and the stage which is critical of sleep for us to feel refreshed the next day. Caffeine works by blocking adenosine receptors within our brain. Adenosine is a sleep-promoting chemical that is produced in the brain during our waking hours. Normally, adenosine builds up in the brain the longer you are awake. And the more it builds up, the sleepier you become. But when we have caffeine, caffeine blocks this process. You remain alert and vigilant. But this may also be why caffeine consumption can disrupt sleep. When we talk about caffeine, we always tend to jump to thinking about teas and coffees. But actually, caffeine is also in a lot of other things. For example, certain dark chocolates, certain over-the-counter medication. So while you think you only might drink 2 cups of coffee, think about what else you're consuming throughout the day. It's also worth noting here that different baristas might make different strength coffees. So for example, if you typically go to Costa and have a cappuccino, that cappuccino might have a different strength going to a different Costa or Starbucks or different sort of cafe that serves that. So it might be worth noting as well, different strengths of caffeine depending on the barista that makes it. Now let's think about alcohol. Alcohol is commonly used as a sleep aid, with many believing that because alcohol helps to fall asleep faster, this will mean that they will have a better night's sleep throughout the night. However, too much alcohol, especially late at night, can actually play havoc with your sleep patterns. While alcohol may help you fall asleep initially, it will interrupt your sleep later on in the night, causing lots of brief awakenings, which you won't remember, and this is why you feel you haven't slept well the next morning. Alcohol also robs you of one of the most satisfying types of sleep, that REM sleep that I spoke about earlier, where dreams occur, which is that deep sleep that we actually need to replenish our body. Alcohol encourages too much water to be flushed out of the body, which will dehydrate you, putting your body under strain and contributing to a headache that can stop you from sleeping. If you use alcohol as a way of unwinding from a stressful day at work or a stressful day in general, try alternative methods such as taking a warm bath, reading a book, meditating, performing relaxation exercises. Something else that can interrupt our sleep is drinks in general. If you have a glass of water before bed, you might wake up in the middle of the night to use the toilet. And if this is a frequent occurrence, this can cause us again to have broken sleep. As I mentioned earlier, will rob us of that good quality sleep. So maybe we're thinking about not drinking for at least an hour before bed. We're now going to move on to thinking about our environment. Now, this might seem like a rather minor thing, but you shouldn't underestimate the importance of your bedroom sleep environment. It may be the one thing that helps you quickly transition to rest, or the thing that keeps you tossing and turning all night. We're going to consider three main ways to optimize our bedroom for sleep. We're going to look at factors including noise, temperature, and lighting. If we start with noise. Now, if we hear a noise, we inevitably will wake up. And this can be a good thing if we were sleeping in a cave and a lion's coming to eat us. But this is not so helpful if our neighbour's blasting the radio too loud. That's going to be less desirable. Now, we might hear a noise and that we might not fully become conscious and completely wake up, but we will certainly come out of that deeper stage of sleep. So if we are trying to sleep in a noisy environment, our ability to enjoy restful deep sleep will be compromised. Therefore, it's better to try and keep things as quiet as possible. Some may benefit from using a white noise machine or a fan, putting in earplugs, or keeping a radio or television on a very low volume to drown out the street noise. Next, let's think about temperature. Now, most people prefer to sleep in a slightly cooler environment. Others might want to bury themselves in thick blankets. But no matter how you choose to sleep, you will no doubt want to be at the right temperature. If you wake up shivering or drenched in sweat, the temperature of your sleep environment is a problem. It's a problem because it woke you up. So really think about your temperature of your bedroom. Is it too hot or too cold? Or is it like Goldilocks and it's just right? Finally, let's think about light. The amount of light in your bedroom can impact how well you sleep. In general, it's best to kind of sleep in darkness. You might prefer to have a night light for safety reasons, perhaps if you're getting up in the middle of the night and you've got to go downstairs. But our body's natural circadian rhythm tends to want to follow the natural dark light cycle. So morning sunlight can be a key factor that will help you to wake up. But on the other hand as well, exposure to artificial screen light can actually keep you awake and cause insomnia. So we really want to try and power down for at least an hour or two before bedtime to help prevent that ability to kind of fall asleep. I'd also like to note here, we should try and remember to only use our bedroom for bedroom things. Don't use your bedroom for eating, watching TV. You want to keep your bedroom for bedroom things only. So when you get into bed, your body knows that that's time for sleep, but it's not time for watching TV or eating. So remember to keep your bedroom for bedroom things. Next, we're going to have a look at managing worries. Now, anxiety and depression has been shown to reduce sleep quality. If you go to bed feeling anxious, depressed, or worried, you'll spend much more time in the lighter stages of sleep and less in those deeper stages. You're also much more likely to kind of wake up in the night. So you want to try and think about resolving the worries or concerns before bedtime. Perhaps you want to jot some of these down on your mind and then set it aside for tomorrow. You might want to start with the basics. Try and get organised, set priorities and delegate tasks. When we write things down, such as our worries or our to-do list, this externalizes our thoughts, meaning we get them from our mind onto paper, which in itself can be really helpful in us processing how we feel about that thought, about that worry, about that to-do list. It will also help us to remember our to-do list rather than our mind constantly nagging us not to forget to send that email or wherever else that to-do list might look like for you. Next, we're going to think about our evening sleep routine. Now, having an evening sleep routine can be super helpful to help us unwind and relax before going to sleep. And we recommend trying to do this at least an hour before you aim to go to sleep. Now, finding a routine can be tricky. It is about trial and error to see what works, what doesn't work for you. However, once you know what works, it's really important you try and stick to it. Once you get into a bit of a routine, you might want to start automatically thinking, right, I'm be going to bed soon. So you get into a routine and a habit, and your brain will naturally start to unwind by sticking to that sleep routine. Sleep schedule. Now, people who force themselves to fall asleep have bad quality sleep. If you go to bed when you're not sleepy, you're less likely to enter into those deeper stages of sleep and much more likely to wake up later in the night and not be able to fall back to sleep. So having a good sleep schedule is the best way to ensure you go to bed feeling sleepy. Waking up at the same time each day, avoid napping during the day, and taking regular exercise will help to ensure that you feel sleepy before going to bed. When you do go to bed, if you are not falling asleep within 20 minutes, we would encourage you to leave your bedroom and do something that's relaxing. Maybe read or listen to soothing music, and only then go back to bed when you're tired and repeat as necessary. If you'd like to Google this of sleep retraining, this can really help you to reset your sleeping pattern, which can be really helpful. Now let's look at something called revenge bedtime procrastination. Revenge bedtime procrastination describes the decision to sacrifice sleep for leisure time that is driven by a daily schedule lacking in free time. So, in other words, you've had such a packed day in work, you have no time for yourself. So, you might get home and stay up late doing things for yourself, such as watching Netflix or reading a book, anything that you enjoy doing, but that's going to result in you going to bed later despite knowing you have to get up early the next day. Now, this can be a difficult concept because a lot of our workshops, a lot of our interventions, we spend a lot of time promoting how important self-care is. And this section almost sounds as though we're saying it's really important to go to bed early and forget about your self-care time. We're not saying that. What we're trying to say here is, although it can be difficult to not fall into, because we do all lead very busy lives, it's really important to try and think about that balance of where can we fit in that extra episode of Netflix instead, or things we enjoy doing to have that more balance. But also reframing how we see sleep. Sleep is also thinking about looking after ourselves, and sleep itself is a form of self-care, ensuring we have enough sleep to fight the next day. And although revenge bedtime procrastination can be tempting in the moment, late nights followed by early mornings can directly lead to serious sleep deprivation. Cutting back on sleep can have a significant negative effect on mental, physical, and emotional health, with short and long-term consequences. So as tempting as it can be to stay up and watch another episode of Netflix, the side effects might not be worth it. Next, let's look at nightmares. Now, if you're somebody who regularly has nightmares, it's really important we try and reframe those nightmares. For example, if you had a nightmare that you woke up from and you were unable to recall the ending of what happened in that nightmare, I would encourage you to make up the ending. For example, if I had a nightmare of a grizzly bear about to eat me, I might imagine that the ending was that I grew bigger than the bear, flicked him on the nose, and got rid of the bear. And that way you could laugh about it. Now, this hasn't got to be a realistic ending. It could be quite comical, like the example that I just give. What we want to try and do is reframe the nightmare and try and get rid of that emotion from it. So imagine a better ending, because that's going to allow your body to settle down and calm down. However, if you can recall the imagery of the dream and the ending and how it's worked out, that can be a lot difficult then to reframe. In that instance, we would encourage you to use grounding techniques. For example, what can you see, smell, touch, or taste? Trying to soothe yourself in that moment to ground yourself back into the present moment. This is going to allow you to be back present in the moment, acknowledging that you're in bed safe and that grizzly bear can't come and grab you. Next, we're thinking about sleeping pills. Now, if you have been prescribed by your GP to take sleeping pills, please disregard this slide and take them as directed. However, if you kind of buy sleeping pills over the counter to kind of help you sleep, really try and think about avoiding them. The reason we say this is while sleeping pills may help you fall asleep quicker, they are well known to reduce sleep quality. The sleep you get from sleeping pills is far less effective than natural sleep, and the combination of poor sleep quality and the hangover effect from sleeping pills make you feel as if you hardly slept at all that night. And in addition, they come with a whole host of other nasty side effects. We would encourage you to look at a sleep diary. What we mean by a sleep diary is recording what your sleep looks like. For example, if you're concerned that caffeine might be a problem and you had fallen asleep one night, could you then recall how much caffeine you had that day? Perhaps keeping a track of your caffeine, different things such as that, might give you a better idea of what is affecting your sleep, what your sleep schedule looks like. Do you have a routine? Different tools like this could be really helpful in helping to manage your sleep differently and to improve that sleep. Thank you for joining me for today's session. I hope you found it of use. To conclude, I would encourage you to reflect on the final points seen on the screen. Firstly, ask yourself, What has resonated with me most during today's session? What have I noticed about my well-being during this session? And finally, what is one thing I can do now to support my own well-being after this session? If you require further support, you can see more information on our website at ctmuhb.nhs.wales/staff/employee wellbeing. Here you will find links to our access form and our emotional care pathway, which highlights all of our services. Also remember, you have access to Vivup. Vivup not only provides 6 counselling sessions to staff, they also have a 24/7 telephone helpline, which staff can access 24/7, 365 days a year. This can be accessed through their telephone number on 033 03 800 658. I hope you enjoyed today's session and take care. Thank you.